What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from Mtg. We like magic, and the other day I asked you if you might be interested in a Brawl Deck Tech, and the overwhelming response was really positive, which kind of surprised me. I mean, I'm not really sure how the community at large feels about this new format, but at least my audience is really stoked on it, or at least wants to see what a theoretical deck tech might look like. So, in preparation for that, I was actually brewing up a few different lists. Now, I ended up trying out 4 different commanders on my way to making this video. At first, there was Nicol Bolas, definitely really good, but the deck we're building around him, while awesome, is really expensive, and I didn't want the maybe one only Brawl deck that I ever do to be a really expensive deck. You know, I wanted there to be a good point of entry here, so I nixed Nicol. Next up was Nissa, the Simic Nissa. I was really excited about this one, but it turns out I think Simic just lacks, good interaction. So you really have to execute your game plan because you can't do anything to keep your opponent off of theirs. And at the end of the day, didn't quite care for it in favor of some other stuff, but the deck was really fun. Then I tried out Elinda. I had really high hopes for this one. It's in a color combination that has plenty of good interaction, so that won't be a problem. Cross that off the list, and looks like a really fun commander too that we could build a pretty budget deck around. So had high hopes for it, but it's a little inconsistent. It requires way too many pieces to be in play all at the same time to really fire off, do what it's trying to do. So at the end of the day, when all was said and done, I did find a commander that I felt combined all the best qualities of these other commanders, and that was the Locust God. This is not only a consistent deck right here, but it also has some pretty good baseline interaction at the very least. But best of all, it's really fun and really budget too. Really low point of entry here, less than $50 to build this whole thing, and it's a really fun commander. When you think about it, it kind of does everything that you traditionally want a commander to do anyway. It's got a big body, so it attacks well, it blocks well, holds down the 4 when you need it to. It's a creature factory, that's always good in a commander. It's also a mana sink that draws cards. This thing can just run away with a game by itself. You technically don't even really have to play any other creatures in the deck. We are, don't worry, but you don't have to. I mean, this thing makes all the creatures that you need on its own. So I really like just about everything about the Locust God from a traditional commander standpoint. Why wouldn't he be one of the better Brawl commanders? He's also really easy to build an entire deck around. You just want to draw cards. You want to do that anyway, so you're really not losing much by building your whole deck around this one guy. Something else that you really want out of Commander. And one last thing, by the way, don't forget that you can just let this go to the graveyard. You can choose not to put it into the command zone when it does die, and then it'll pop back to your hand. You don't have to pay any sort of commander tax. A little bit of extra tech there, but really important to remember so that it won't end up costing like 12 mana to cast your Locust God. But there is a lot to cover, and I really don't have much time to do it. I don't want this to be an hour-long video, so I'm going to go ahead and get on with it here and show you the rest of the stuff that we're building around this card, starting with some really important creatures. The most important of which I think is actually Kefnet the Mindful. I was actually not too stoked on including this card, but end of the day, it turns out this card is perfect for the deck. I mean, first of all, extremely cheap 5/5 flying indestructible. Just about any Magic deck that can enable that well wants to be able to do it. And we want to draw all the cards anyway, so we naturally enable Kefnet. So I really like this just sort of in a vacuum, and I like it along with the Locust God for that matter. Obviously, their activated abilities are similar. They both cost 4. They both draw your cards, but I like the way this works in conjunction with the Locust God's activated ability. If you use Kefnet, you can pop lands back to your hand so that you have something safe to discard if you want to use the Locust God's ability. And of course, if you use Kefnet's ability while you have a Locust God out, you get a token off of that. So that's synergy right there. I mean, there's a lot of cards that draw cards in this deck. Literally a third of the deck is meant specifically to draw cards. But Kefnet's one of them. Locust God's another. We'll see like 18 more before it's all said and done here. But Kefnet is one of the best ways to draw cards in the deck, especially if you have a Locust God out. But that doesn't mean that everything in the deck draws us cards. There are some creatures here that don't get us card advantage in any way, but I still think they're important to play because they end up being good, solid bodies, or they help us out in other ways. But one of the most important of those creatures is the copy of Enigma Drake that we're running. We've got a total of 18 instants and sorceries in this deck, which, again, that's very close to a third of the deck, so it's not uncommon, especially in the late game, to have like an 8 power Enigma Drake out. We can fly through with that in end-games really, really fast, and even in the mid-game, this thing can be like a 3 or 4/4 flyer sometimes, which is pretty good for its mana cost. So, I love Enigma Drake. I've always liked Enigma Drake. We'll definitely make room for it in this deck, where we're pretty much, by design, running a ton of instants and sorceries anyway. But of course, the flip side of that is that we have creatures in the deck that do draw us cards. So we're going to take a look at those real quick. We're playing a copy of Champion of Wits, a copy of Riverwise Augur, check that out, and a copy of Curator of Mysteries. Now, Curator of Mysteries is probably one of the more flexible slots in the deck, I suspect at least, but it is nice to have a card that for a really low cost can draw cards, which is what the deck's wanting to do anyway. But it's a big body in the air when we need that. A lot of versatility here, so I think it earns a slot, but if you're looking to put like more expensive stuff in, I'd maybe start with Curator of Mysteries. But again, it's nice to have that body when we need it. Other than that, Champion of Wits and even Riverwise Augur, believe it or not, are just great for this deck because they draw us cards, they get us tokens no matter what if we've got a Locust God out, and they help us draw removal and other things that we might need to get to the point in the game where we can even play the Locust God to begin with. Riverwise Augur is especially good here. This might be the deck for him, actually, because we've got a Locust God out. Yeah, it kind of sucks having to put 2 cards back, whatever. It's a 4-mana Brainstorm, blah, blah. But we still at least draw 3 cards. So playing Riverwise Augur actually gets us 4 bodies if we have a Locust God out, which is more than good enough. But again, there are also other creatures in the deck that don't draw us cards, but will help our game plan out in various ways. We've got a copy of Brawl, a copy of Nizahal, and a copy of Vizier of Many Faces, along with a copy of Trophy Mage. Now, this is the rest of the creatures right here. Brawl, we've got 18 instants and sorceries, and there are going to be lots of turns where we have the Locust God out, and we're trying to set up turns where we can double or even triple spell in the same turn. Brawl really, really helps out with that, and even though we're not playing a whole lot of counter magic, he can be really good when we do, negate something or essence scatter something, helping us draw that card, especially when we have Locust God out. That's amazing because countering spells gets us a body and a card that's super dumb. Obviously, when we do counter something, we still have to discard to Brawl, but again, counter magic is not what we're worried about here. We're mostly worried about that cost reduction clause. That's really awesome in a deck that's looking to play a bunch of spells on turn like 7 or 8. So, yes, Brawl. Nizahal. I hate that these both rhyme, Brawl and Nizahal, but they both have really silly names too. We gotta do something about the names. I'm going to start a petition or something, but in any case. Nizahal, even though it sounds like a sneeze, really good for this deck. It's going to be great against control decks in this format, obviously, which I do think there will be a fair share of those. And it gives us no maximum hand size, which is awesome, because again, a third of the deck draws us cards, including Nizahal. This basically taxes them bodies when they want to cast non-creature spells. That's really, really dumb. You want to cast anything non-creature, dude? You're giving us bodies. And Nizahal's obviously a ridiculous body in its own right. So I just don't see any reason not to play this thing. Now, there are 2 artifacts in the deck that Trophy Mage can tutor up, which in and of itself, I think, makes it worth it. I really like tutors in Commander, EDH, these kind of formats, these one-of Highlander formats. Tutors are always fantastic, and the ability to go get, especially one of these 3-cost artifacts, is very good. The ability to search it up at will is really, really good, and we get a body to block out of it too, so I'll take a Trophy Mage. And finally, Vizier of Many Faces. This is just one of those cards that I think that any deck, almost any deck, with access to blue or that can comfortably make double blue in this format should probably be running. This is just a generically great card, especially in this format where you can copy commander creatures and stuff with it. This is just looks really good. And even if we don't have anything on the other side of the board to copy, we can still copy Riverwise Augur or Champion of Wits sometimes and get some cards, especially when we have a Locust God out. That's unbelievable too. So embalming it is crazy. It keeps any really dumb stuff they have on their side of the board in check because we get it too. There's nothing I don't like about Vizier. It doesn't necessarily do anything for the deck, but at the same time, it's one slot, and I think we can spend that on a card that's generically good enough to just be included in almost any blue deck, period. Now, I mentioned that we're playing some artifacts when I talked about Trophy Mage, so I play a copy of Thematic Compass and a copy of Orazca Relic. Now, Thematic Compass is just insane. This is fantastic. For this, or I would imagine any any Brawl deck, any standard commander deck, Thematic Compass is great, especially if you're playing a commander like we are that costs 6 whole mana. That's still a lot at the end of the day. So Thematic Compass helps you get those drops that you need. And there's even a cool second mode on it where when you get your Locust God out, you can just stay at 6 lands and then use Thematic Compass to go fetch lands from your deck and just discard them to the Scarab God's activated ability. That's pretty cool. But when you do flip it, it's another form of removal that takes care of just about any creature in their deck, including their commander, no matter how dumb it looks, no matter how big it is. So just, again, this is one of those cards that everything about it looks ridiculous in this format. And since we're playing a commander that would take 6 whole lands to get to, Thematic Compass will really help out with that. Now, a Razko Relic looks like a flexible slot, and I expect that it might be, but I do want to at least try to convert you on using this slot for Relic. This is actually really good. This not only helps us get to Locust God, but once we do have Locust God, we can convert it. I really like that. Relevance before we play our commander, relevance after we play our commander. Relic is actually pretty good. But we actually did use a few more slots on artifacts in this deck. I just think they're all important to what we're trying to pull off here. We're going to play a copy of Primal Amulet, copy of Key to the City, and a treasure map. I really shouldn't have to explain like any of these, Primal Amulet, just like Brawl, get a little bit of cost reduction on those spells. We can play it earlier than we play our commander. So that by the time we do get Locust God out and we untap on the next turn, we really have the ability to like double or triple spell, get all the bodies in the world, draw all the cards. So, Primal Amulet's awesome, even if it's unflipped, but once we do flip it, it turns all of our card draw spells and all of our removal spells into, 2-for-1s or just extreme card advantage. They get us all of these, tokens. So, yeah, Primal Amulet's ridiculous, and once we get Wellspring, that's equally or even more ridiculous. So, I'll use a slot on this. I think it's worth it. As far as Key to the City, we can use this to get the Locust God or Kefnet through when we otherwise couldn't, and, importantly, we can use this to get an Enigma Drake through that's really, really big and just end the game sometimes. That's important. And of course, this also lets us draw cards when we need to get bodies and get through our deck faster. And as far as treasure map, this is just a great way to start the game. Turn 2, treasure map, you'll get a few scries relatively early. Those scries are really, really important to helping you hit your land drops, get the removal you need early, whatever you're trying to do. And then, once you actually do flip it over, it'll either help you get to your Scarab or your Locust God. I keep doing that. Help you get to your Locust God if you don't have the 6 lands yet. Or if you do have Locust God, then you can sack those treasures to draw cards and get bodies. So just again, just generic 2 mana, super easy to cast early, helps us out no matter what phase of the game we're in. Just everything about treasure map's awesome for this. Now, before I get to all the spells that draw us cards, I'll finish up with that, or at least I'll finish up the main deck with those. There's more to talk about after that. But I do want to go through all the removals and counters and stuff that we're playing. So let me run through those real quick. We're going to play 1 copy of Magma Spray, a copy of Shock, an Abrade, and a Lightning Strike, and a Harness Lightning to start this thing off. Just all 5 of these are obvious inclusions, I think, and I don't really have to explain them other than that. Not too much, These are just like stock good removal spells. I do think it's worth using 3 slots on 2 mana removal. I think it's worth using 2 slots on 1 mana removal. So, end of the day, I just think that these are more or less set in stone slots we have to use because they are good interaction, and we're trying to get to a 6 mana guy. So we want to have the ability to blow creatures off the board early if we can. Aside from those, though, I'm also going to play a copy of Sweltering Suns, a Confiscation Coup, and a Commit to Memory. I really like Sweltering Suns because if we draw it after we have our Locust God out, we've already got a bunch of 1/1 tokens that this would kill, we can just cycle it away. Seems fine, or obviously if we're up against a control deck or any kind of deck that doesn't play a bunch of creatures, cycling this is always an option. And we get a body when we cycle it. If we've got our Locust God out, that's cool. But of course, while we're trying to get to the Locust God, we might get overrun, so it's nice to have a sweeper like this to help make sure that doesn't happen so often. As far as Confiscation Coup, this is great. We're playing some energy elements in the deck, not a whole lot, but Confiscation Coup usually gives us the energy that we need to nab whatever creature we want in the first place. So, Coup is just good in standard. I don't see it being any different here. Confiscation Coup, just awesome enough to make it. As is Commit to Memory. I really like this card for obvious reasons. It's pseudo removal before we get to Locust God. This can also help protect our Locust God sometimes. That can be equally important, but mostly it's removal against all the stuff that our red removal can't hit, which can be super relevant. You've only got like 1 or 2 pieces that do this, but it's relevant. As far as the memory half of it, though, this is great once you have a Locust God out. I don't have to explain that. You draw 7 off of casting this. Not only do you reset your whole hand and your graveyard, all that stuff, but it's just great to just get 7 bodies. What? That's equally ridiculous. The card is unbelievable and just finishes games off if you've got a logo out. Now, we are running some counter magic in this deck. I want to take a look at that, but we're not running a whole bunch. We're going to run a copy of Censor, a copy of Essence Scatter, and a copy of Negate. Now, Essence Scatter is a lot like Commit, It can quote-unquote remove, so long as we get them before they can resolve. It can, quote, remove creatures that our red removal can't handle. It's really important. I want to play a copy of that. As far as Negate goes, this is a Commander-ish format, so there's going to be a lot of big, dumb, flashy, stupid spells that can change the game all at one time. We want the ability to say no to those. For just 2 mana, we'll play Negate. As far as Censor, this isn't great if you don't draw it in your opening hand. If you do, it can be really, really good, but for the most part, when you draw Censor late, it's not great. But at least we can cycle it away for a card, and in this deck, we get extra value because for 1 mana, we get a card and a body if we have a Locust God out. That's a really, really, really good deal. So, Censor's good even if you end up drawing it on turn 6 or later. It's totally fine. But I didn't end up, I want to address this, I didn't end up playing Disallow, Admiral's Order, the other expensive sort of hard counters that I wanted to play when I first brewed this deck up. We're just not that reactive. I don't feel like the deck is good enough to be playing or, in the position where it wants to play expensive-ish counters like that. It may be the right choice at the end of the day, but I felt we could use those slots a little bit better. But now it's time to draw some cards. More or less the entire rest of the deck, save for maybe 1 card, draws cards. And technically it can draw you cards, sort of. So let's go over all of these real quick because there's kind of a lot of them. We're going to play a copy of Opt, a copy of Cathartic Reunion, and a copy of Chart a Course to start things off. I don't think I really have to explain these, honestly. I didn't go for Tormenting Voice here. I played Cathartic Reunion instead. Didn't end up wanting to play both because we're kind of playing a lot of things that make us discard cards. Yeah, we can discard land if we want to, but I also don't want to be in a position where most of our cards that draw cards also force us to discard. I didn't want that, so I left out Tormenting Voice, but I will play Cathartic Reunion because 3 bodies for 2 mana and, 3 drawn cards. Yeah, we got to get rid of a couple, but 3 drawn cards for just a couple of mana is exactly how much I want to spend. That is a ridiculous thing to do once we have a Locust God out. And as far as the other stuff, Opt and Chart a Course. Chart a Course is somewhat similar to Tormenting Voice, but a lot better in a lot of ways, If we've already attacked with a bunch of tokens or whatever, this is just straight up card advantage that nets us more tokens. That's great. And obviously, if we want to, we can make more tokens before our attack step if we have a Locust God. And again, those guys have haste. So yeah, we have to discard a card, but we'll make a couple of tokens to get in that attack step. And draw a couple of cards for that matter. So Chart a Course is pretty awesome. And Opt is pretty much obvious. Opt is a very good card. Whether you have Locust God out or not, it's just a 1 mana investment for drawing a card and getting a scry. And if you do have a logo out, that 1 mana also gets you a 1/1 flyer with haste. So it's just like the best investment in the world. But we are playing other card draw, obviously. We're going to play a Hieroglyphic Illumination, a Glimmer of Genius, and a Secrets of the Golden City. Now, this is a slow format, obviously, and the Locust God is conducive to getting a lot of permanents out. Every card you draw gets you a permanent towards Ascend. So Secrets is really, really good in this deck after you get your Locust God. But even before you get Ascend, it's still 2 cards for 3 mana. That's card advantage. You'll usually take that. But once you do have Locust God and you hit Ascend, Secrets is unfreaking believable. 3 bodies, 3 cards, 3 mana. That's a great investment. As far as the other cards, these are just 2 of the better card drawing spells in Standard, period. Glimmer of Genius, we can use that energy on a little something, but obviously 2 scries and 2 cards for 4 mana at instant speed is pretty unbelievable, and if you do have a Locust God out, remember that these instant speed draw spells like this and Opt and a few other things, Hieroglyphic Illumination even, can make you creatures at instant speed. So if your opponent goes to attack in, you have the option of just essentially responding to their attack step. You attack with those guys, I'll draw some cards at instant speed, I'll make some dudes, and I'll block. You can also do that if you just have a Locust God out and the open mana to use his ability. I should point that out too. But all of these instant speed draw spells let you do that, and they're just good on their own, you know. Hieroglyphics the same way, you know. If you somehow need to draw a card really bad before you get to 4 mana, you can do that for a very low investment. But once you do have Logo out, you're guaranteed to have the 4 mana it takes to cast this, get a couple of cards, and get a couple of dudes. Now, the last couple of cards that draw us cards in the deck are the copy of Cumina's Awakening and the copy of, yes, I went there, Overflowing Insight. Now, this is a commander format. I want to play at least one big, dumb, splashy, stupid spell, and Overflowing Insight is the one. This can end the game on the spot, you know? Just 7 cards. Yes, 7 mana is a lot, but we're already trying to get to a 6 mana guy. Plus, we've got Primal Amulet, we've got Brawl, we've got stuff to bring down the cost of this. Once we get a Locust God out, all we have to do is get 1 more land. We can play Insight and get 7 creatures along with 7 cards. And those creatures have haste. They can attack right away. That is really, really hilarious. And again, ends games completely. I think it's more than worth playing. I want the long shot. This is a commander-ish format. I want to play a fun card. But Cumina's Awakening, this is especially good, you know. Again, super easy to hit Ascend in this deck. Games go long anyway, and Locust God helps us get there. And once we do get Ascend, Cumina's Awakening is just another card and another guy every single turn. That is worth our 4 mana investment, and it's kind of tough to get rid of. So, yeah, we'll play this. But the very last spell in the entire deck is the 1 copy of Flood. Of course, there's just 1 copy, but still. Is Flood of Recollection. Now, I know this looks a little weird, doesn't see all the standard play in the world, but this essentially just gives us, you know, card advantage out of our graveyard. This lets us play 2 copies, more or less, of whatever card we're getting out of our graveyard. It can be really important. Note, I just showed you Overflowing Insight. Imagine if you Insight into a Flood of Recollection and get your Insight back later. That'll sew you up a game in a hurry too. And outside of Insight, outside of Overflowing Insight, there's a ton of stuff that you might want to get back depending on the situation. This helps you get back removal when you need to, helps you get back your Glimmer of Genius if that's your best option. But there's tons of options for Recollection to get back for you. Again, this just kind of feels like getting to play a second copy of whatever card you need in that situation, given that it's already in your graveyard. So I think Flood works here. Now here's the Manabase. We're playing 25 lands in this deck, and one of the concerns that I've heard is, you know, how are we going to build mana bases? Turns out you do have to play a good number of basics, but there's also plenty of other stuff we get access to. We've got plenty of ways in this deck, or at least a few, to make energy, so Ether Hub definitely goes in. Highland Lake and the expensive Spirebluff Canal are there to be dual lands for us. Soon we'll even get another red-blue dual land when Dominaria comes out, but in case you didn't want to spend the like almost $8 on Spirebluff Canal, you can cut this deck down to like $35 by just putting an island in instead if you wanted to, but I do recommend you play the 1 copy of Canal. Aside from that, Evolving Wilds and even Field of Ruin will help us, you know, tutor essentially for the basics that we need at any given time. And Arch of Araska, again, Ascend, pretty easy to trigger off in this deck, and games go long anyway. So Arch of Araska is just another card every single turn if we want it. Okay, so that was a lot, but I'm pretty sure that I'm tapped out for this one. Make sure you let me know how you felt about this deck. And again, the format at large, what brawlers, that's somebody suggested we call them brawlers instead of commanders. I like it. What brawlers would you like to see decks with? Do you want me to continue doing this? I think now is a decent time to do it while we wait on Dominaria to come out. You know, next week, if you're watching this the couple of days after I put it out, next week is probably going to be mostly focused on preview content for Dominaria, but while we're waiting on it to become standard legal, I could probably do another 1 or 2 of these deck techs if you're interested in it. So let me know. Let me know how you liked this one. Let me know what you'd play instead. All that stuff. Also, remember this video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. My sponsor, them New York boys, you know. They're good folks up there. They're where you can get this deck for the absolute cheapest online right now. Again, under $50. It was about $45 when I built this deck on TCG Player, and you can check that deck list out by clicking the very first link in the description. If you don't want to watch this whole super long video, 1 card at a time again, just click that link. It'll take you to a version of the deck list where you can look at everything all in one place instead of watching some fatso run his mouth for 20 minutes. So if that sounds a little more comfortable, just click the link. That's all for this one. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter if you want to, at SBMTGDev, Or if you throw me 25% of a booster pack every single month, it's $1 a month. Then I'll let you know what videos and deck techs and stuff we're coming out with 24 hours before the video comes out. That's good. You want to know the schedule. You want to get on top of things. So again, for, what is that, 3 booster packs a year. That's it. Just $1 a month. If you're interested, check the link in the description. I'll put one down there for you. But I guess that's it. I keep saying that, but I'm pretty sure that really is it this time. It's really important that you respond to this one. Let me know how you feel. Really check in the comment section on these last couple of videos because I want to know how the community at large, or at least my audience, feels about this format. It's been really fun brewing up. It's been really fun. Messing around, seeing what we can actually do. I've already had a few people in the comment section of my last video tell me about some crazy stuff they've done in the Brawl games they've already played. So it's a fun format. Give it a try if you haven't. Or if you're just a sour puss and you don't like it, give it a shot. It's a fun format. But in any case, that's all I got for now. I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching my wizards. Remember, important, spread love and be kind.